that I mentioned, right? Then you can deploy one yourself, try it out, let it run for a few days, see what happens. And if you get more interested, you can participate in the projects. There are many projects that you can participate with. You can write code, help document, test, contribute to comments to improve the actual tools that we use, like Kipo and all these tools that I just showed you. And of course, then you can participate in the HoneyNet project. So this is my picture with some people at HoneyNet Taiwan, right? So there's a group of people that does this kind of thing also. And they have an annual conference, and over there they share lots of analysis and tools and some scripts that people make with Splunk, with ArcSight, all kinds of things that people do in the production environment, and they share it with the community. So I don't want to take much more time. That's all I have for today. Thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, please ask. If not, you can always email me.
You can have two questions.
Two questions.
Yes. First.
Yeah.
And then
I can first.
Yeah.
How do we, for example, I build a HoneyPot server. How do you know that you have entered my HoneyPot server? You see the IP address of my server, and you see you want to attack it. When you attack it, you go into, and then the first thing you feel that you know that, oh, it is HoneyPot. I have to click.
Yeah.
How do you know by your experience?
There are many ways sometimes, because sometimes a lot of researchers, when they run honeypots, they use virtual machines. So there's always ways to check, let's say, the network setup. If you run ifconfig, you look at the interface, you know immediately that, if you don't change the configuration, maybe standard MAC address or standard interface name, then you know that this is a virtual machine, get out, right? Or if you try a few commands, you don't get what you want, right? Only certain commands respond to you, then you get highly suspicious, right? So a lot of the advanced attackers in their scripts, it's very advanced as well. After a few attempts, they don't succeed, they get out quickly, right? And go away. Yeah.
First.
I want to ask about the support system, like more threat. This system, you say, when we apply the HoneyPot, so we have many attacks from the world.
Yeah.
So some attack we also know about the snort, tick, or Selenium. So which one that we know is a specific new attack?
Yeah. So I think if you use supporting system like an IDS or IDS to help you determine what kind of attacks you receive. If you're running HoneyPot, so if you're running a production system, then maybe you are interested in all kinds of attacks. But if you're running a HoneyPot, it depends. So if I run the snort, I get a lot of alert on ICMP. I'm not interested in those things, right? So I'm just looking for things that are not giving any alerts, for instance. That's what I do. But I just have the alerting system just for easy for me to classify and categorize, right? So I will have IDS, I will have MountTrail running at the same time. So when I'm trying to do an analysis, I have all these tools that does all the processing for me already to tell me if it's priority or not, right? Last year when there was 2 years ago when there was Heartbleed, right? Some people write script quickly to detect if Heartbleed is being exploited in the wild, right? So in that scenario, what I did was I turned off my IDS because it was too noisy. It was picking up everything except for one rule, which is the Heartbleed rule, right? So my HoneyPot was just waiting for this attack, right? So the moment I get it, I'm like, yeah, let's do some analysis and investigation. So that's how we use the supporting tool. We don't really rely on them totally, but we use them to classify, to see what's interesting, what's not interesting, to take out some noise and so on. Right? So you can configure it really to customize according to how you deploy your HoneyPots.
Yes.
Thank you for your comprehensive presentation. I want to ask a question. What you have presented here mostly that is the positive line of HoneyPot. The positive way of the HoneyPot.
Yeah.
And so these days the cyber attack is raising very high in public market. And
yeah.
So why don't the industry invest this kind of system for protection or analyze of this attack?
Yeah, there is actually. So there are some very commercial honeypot systems for internal network, especially like you said for dealing with targeted attack. Because a lot of the attacks that I show you is things that are very noisy, right? Things that happens on the internet. These are opportunistic attacks. People who are scanning, trying to get more machines for their bots, botnets, and so on, right? So that's one category of attack. But for things like APT inside the organization, you probably need to deploy something internal that looks like a real system. So there are some commercial ones, offerings that people have developed. I've seen some. And you can also customize your deployment inside the network to pick it up, right? But I guess a honeypot is not as popular as IDS or firewall, where there is immediate result. Like if I have a firewall, I put in a route, I can actually execute on that particular route. A honeypot, so if I buy a honeypot system and they're starting on my network, then I go back to my management and said that, oh, it's not picking up anything, then they will ask me, why did you buy it in the first place? It's totally useless. But they don't get the idea that maybe one day the attack may come and it will be so stealthy that we need something like a honeypot to pick it up, right? So, yeah, I mean, go and deploy inside your network. If it doesn't pick up anything, that's good, right? Because the value will when it picks up something. So that requires sometimes different mindset in terms of people buying solutions for the enterprise network.
Any more? We open more? Okay.
Okay, coming back to the con or the honeypot, the operational intensives.
Okay.
I mean, can you, based on your experience, how much percentage that you can estimate compared to the real life infrastructure that running a honeypot itself?
The question is how much percentage of
running a honeypot can cost as much as of the real infrastructure that you try to replicate.
Oh, how much time do I invest in running, managing it? It depends how big it is, how big and how vast it is. Many years ago, I used to have a much bigger one. I think listening on maybe different ISPs, different AS numbers, covering many thousand of IP blocks and so on and so forth. So at that time, the attacks were different, and you can see a lot of newer things on the internet. But after a while, you find that every segment is picking up more or less the same thing, right? So you start, killing one by one because you're just going to pick up the same stuff. So it depends again how large and how much you want to do. In my case here now, I have a variety of honeypots because I'm interested in different kinds of attacks. Some web, some the brute force type, some malware. Most of the stuff that I pick up on malware are known malware, so there's nothing really new, to be honest. But it's still very interesting to find systems who are still infected with very old stuff, right? And I mean, you would assume that in 2016 you will not see any configure, but still there are many systems out there still infected with configure, for instance, or some of the older malware, right? To me, what is interest of me is something very specific. So at one point, I was very interested to find infected computers or malicious computers from a particular region, right? Of course, now with APNIC, I'm always interested in our whole region to get some context, So all this while, when we talk about security, we are always trying to tell people, oh, do this and do that. But when you look at the reality from data that we capture from honeypots, people are not even doing the basics. You still have very old machines running around, scanning, attacking, right? And how can you improve security if you don't, sort this out and clean it up? So different mission, different focus, and therefore different amount of time to be invested. Yeah, so it depends. If it's just for fun, just deploy and just have fun, but it could get really serious once you start focusing and looking for something very specific. Good? Dinner time?
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
I want to ask about the
We have 3 minutes.
and the radiant interactive honeypot.
Yeah.
So the two kind of disease is set for the we are deployed, right? The attacker cannot break the low interactive and radiant.
Yeah. Yeah, so an easy example of low interaction is if I write a bash script that uses netcat and listen on port 80. That's why I run that. The moment I get a hit, I log it, but there's nothing much they can do. Right? It's just logging. Oh, somebody's trying to come into port 80 or port 23 or port 22. Medium interaction is a bit more, like people, right? I open port 22, they go in, I let them write some command, I will allow one connection back to download something. And that's it, because I don't want them to be using my system to, attack some other systems.
Like the real system.
Yeah, right. And if you deploy a real high interaction honeypots, then you have to start thinking about firewalls and all these things, because they got in, they have a real system, now they may be, attacking some other system. You don't want your honeypots to be involved in, attacking some other system or another honeypots for that matter. Right? So a bit more work depending on, what you are trying to deploy. Yeah. Okay, no more question. So
We have 2 minutes.
2 minutes. I think you should not ask questions and go home and try it.
Close.
Then you ask questions.
Okay? No more?
Yeah, I'm just joking. If you have a question, let me know. But
Okay.